Alrighty, we are going to be reading Can We Float Like a Duck? The Secret Behind Duck Feathers. Okay, the first time you read it, I want you to just read it independently and mark anything in the story that's confusing, anything you have a question about, anything that you think is important to the story, and then we're going to talk about it when we're done. Okay, so you read it to yourself and I'll read it to myself. Alright? Alright. Okay, so now that you've finished your first read, let's go ahead and talk about the story. Can we float like a duck? What are some things that you noticed about the story? Some interesting things, maybe anything you thought was important to the story, anything you underlined, any questions you had?
I think
Biomimicry? Yeah.
And secrete is important to the story because they're underlined and they repeated it in the story often.
So, to secrete things and biomimicry were important because they were underlined in the story and they repeated them a couple times? Okay. What was the duck secreting?
Oil.
Oil? Okay. That's kind of weird, right? I didn't even know that about ducks. I thought that was really interesting that they secrete the oil, which means they kind of hold it in. Kind of weird, right? Can you think of anything else that might secrete something or hold it in?
A sponge.
Ooh, a sponge. Yeah. Does your mom use sponges for dishes and stuff?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. My mom always used sponges to clean the walls. Yeah. Good. Good connection. And then biomimicry, I thought that was kind of an interesting word, one that I hadn't really heard before either. But I agree with you that it was important because they underlined it. So we call this biomimicry, which means solving human problems by looking at how nature has solved them. So that's pretty interesting. The idea that, you know, we might have a problem and animals and plants could help us figure it out. So it's kind of like we're all connected, right? And we depend on each other. Yeah. Anything else interesting that you wanted to talk about from the story, or anything that was confusing about what this, you know, what was being said in the story?
No.
No? Okay. Well, the second time we read this story, I just want us to read the first 3 paragraphs. Okay, we're just going to read the first 3 paragraphs. And this time, when we read paragraph 1, 2, and 3, excuse me, I'm sorry, I just want us to read 2 and 3. Sorry, 2 and 3. And this time when we read 2 and 3, I want us to think about what's the main idea in that section, okay? Because there are 2 main ideas in the story. And when we read 2 and 3 a little bit more closely, I'd like for us to think, you know, what do you think the author's trying to get us to understand from this? So what's the main idea of this section? Okay? Would you like to read it both of us at the same time, or do you want to take turns?
Take turns.
Okay. Do you want to read 2 or 3?
2.
I might make you read a little bit of 3 because 3 is long. Okay. All right. Good deal. Okay, so we just finished our second read, and again, I want us to, and maybe you want to pull it so you can easily see it. I want us to fill in our graphic organizer. What do you think one of the main ideas from the story was?
Ducks are able to secrete the oils. Ducks are able to secrete the oils that coats their feathers. This causes the feather to become waterproof.
Okay, so what's the title of the story?
Can we float like a duck?
Okay, so if the title is Can We Float Like a Duck, I'm with you on something in that section is important to the story. Ducks are able to secrete oil that coats their feathers. This causes the feathers to become waterproof. Let's think a little bit of bigger picture though. Secrete is important, sure, it's underlined, it's a word that the author obviously wants us to know. But what's the bigger picture here? Look at the subtitle of the story, The Secret Behind Duck Feathers. So what do you think it is about the feathers that makes them important?
That they soak up the oil that causes the feathers to become waterproof.
Right, definitely. So in that paragraph, in paragraph 2 and 3, if you want to use your blue pencil, anything that has to do with the feathers being waterproof. Let's go ahead and color that. Okay, so let's pull out the main idea then and put it in our graphic organizer. So what did we decide it was? The oil, right?
The duck's feathers secrete oil that causes the feathers to become waterproof.
Okay, so do you think it's necessarily important to the main idea that the feathers secrete the oil, or is the main idea that the feathers are waterproof?
That they're waterproof.
Okay, because yeah, they're waterproof because of this oil, but the idea is the fact that they're waterproof, that's what helps them, right? And that ties back into the title, The Secret Behind the Duck Feathers. So yeah, now we know the secret, but what's really important is that they're waterproof, right? So let's jot that in our graphic organizer. Duck feathers are waterproof, right? Okay, and then can you see any details that might support the main idea about, you know, why is it important that the feathers are waterproof? Like, what does that do for the duck?
It helps the duck stay light.
Okay, helps the duck stay light. So they don't what?
Sink.
Yeah, that would be bad. And another detail from that section that supports the idea that the duck feathers are waterproof, and that's important because
It keeps them warm by keeping the cool water away from their skin.
yeah. Okay. Okay, so the last time we read, I want us to just read 5 and 6. Okay, so the third read, we're going to read paragraphs 5 and 6, and we're looking for another main idea of the text. And I just want to remind us, the title is Can We Float Like a Duck? Okay?
Well, while we have looked at how the feathers keep the duck floating, there is another secret why ducks are also able to float in the water so well. Ducks have air sacs inside their bodies. These sacs are a lot like your lungs. They hold air. Have you ever held your breath and gone underwater? If so, you probably noticed that you kept going back up towards the surface. This is because of the air in your lungs. But if you let the air out slowly, you will begin to slowly sink. So in order for the duck to sit on top of the water like he does, he must also keep air in the air sacs.
If you combine oil with hollow feathers, trap air under your armpits, and are able to keep your lungs really full, then maybe you will be able to float like a duck. But I wouldn't bet on it. However, we can learn from nature. We call this biomimicry, which means solving human problems by looking at how nature has solved the problem. Okay, so we just read it a third time. We focused on this section of 5 and 6. What do you think the other main idea of the story is? And again, the story is about floating like a duck. And I'd like you to use your yellow colored pencil this time to identify the second main idea you think. So what's the other main idea?
Ducks have air sacs inside their body that helps them float on top of the water.
Right, okay, so let's go ahead and fill that in on our graphic organizer. So not only are the duck's feathers waterproof, but they also have these air sacs inside their bodies, right? And so what are the details that you think support the idea that these air sacs help them? What do?
They hold air.
They hold air. So that's one of the details. Why do you think that's important? What does that do for the duck?
So they won't sink.
So they won't sink, or what does air do for the duck?
It helps them float on top of the water.
Helps them float on top of the water, you're right. And then what else do you think it does? They hold air for... One of the details, you're right. It's to help them sit on top of the water.
And you must also keep air in this.
What do you think the air does for the duck? What do we need air for? Breathing, right? Alright, so now we're going to take what we decided were the two main ideas of the story, and we're going to use them to write our summary. Okay? And the way this will work is we'll introduce the two ideas. For instance, in this story, can we float like a duck? Duck feathers are very important, right? And then we would start with our first main idea, which was that duck feathers are waterproof, and we would list our supporting details in our summary. And then we would talk about how the ducks also have air sacs inside their bodies, and how those air sacs are important, right? Okay.